Your success means nothing. Evan's the only son who counts. My mom spat after skipping my business graduation to pour money into his dying agency. Then watch me erase you for good, I said. But what happened next shook their world. My name is Eric. I'm 32 years old. And if there's one thing I've learned in 3 decades of existence, it's this. Invisibility is a choice your family makes for you, not one you make for yourself. I built my consulting business from nothing. No seed money from Dad's wallet. No soft introductions to his golf club connections. Just late nights, cold coffee, and a laptop that crashed more times than I care to remember. By the time I turned 30, I had 12 corporate clients and revenue that would make most people smile. My parents never asked about the numbers. They never asked about anything. Evan, on the other hand, got the full parade. My younger brother, golden child extraordinaire, 28 years old and still living like the world owed him applause for waking up. When he announced he was starting a marketing agency 3 years ago, Mom cried actual tears of pride. Dad opened his checkbook before Evan even finished his pitch. I watched from the kitchen doorway, holding a congratulatory card I never got to give because nobody noticed I was there. They poured money into his dream like it was a leaking boat, and they were terrified of drowning. First, it was the startup capital, then the office lease in the trendy part of downtown. Then the brand consultants, the website redesign, the networking events, the memberships to clubs he never used. I stopped counting after the first 100,000. It wasn't my money, it wasn't my business. But it stung every time I saw another transfer receipt left carelessly on the kitchen counter during Sunday dinners. My childhood was a masterclass in being second place. Every birthday party was smaller than Evan's. Every achievement I brought home was met with a polite nod, then a pivot to whatever Evan was struggling with that week. When I made the honor roll in high school, Dad asked me if I could tutor Evan in math. When I got into a good undergraduate program, Mom asked if I was sure I wanted to go so far away when Evan would miss me. When I won a regional business competition at 24, they didn't come to the ceremony. Evan had a soccer game, a recreational league soccer game. I learned to stop expecting. Expectation leads to disappointment, and disappointment leads to bitterness. So I became dependable instead. The son who didn't need anything. The son who showed up on time, brought wine to dinners, fixed the Wi-Fi router without being asked, and never caused trouble. I thought maybe being useful would make me visible. I was wrong, but I kept trying. I kept showing up. I kept being the good son who didn't complain, who didn't demand, who didn't make waves, because that's what you do when you love people who forget to love you back the same way. You stay quiet. You stay hopeful. You tell yourself that someday they'll see you. I thought my MBA graduation might be that someday. The auditorium was full, families crowded into rows, clutching bouquets and homemade signs. Camera flashes lit up the room like small fireworks. I stood backstage in my cap and gown, scanning the seats for 2 faces I knew wouldn't be hard to spot. Mom always wore bright colors to events. Dad always sat on the aisle. They weren't there. I checked my phone 3 times during the ceremony. No missed calls, no texts, just a message from my friend Jason asking if I wanted to grab drinks after. I walked across that stage, shook hands with the Richard, accepted my diploma, and smiled for a photographer I'd never see again. The whole time, I felt hollow. When I finally got to my car, I called Mom. She picked up on the 4th ring. "Eric, hi, sweetheart. How was it?" I sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. "How was what, Mom?" "Your graduation thing." Thing. My MBA graduation was a thing. "It was fine," I said slowly. "Were you planning on coming?" There was a pause, not the kind of pause that means someone forgot. The kind that means someone is choosing their words carefully. "Oh, honey, we couldn't make it. Evan had an emergency at the agency. A huge client meeting fell through, and he was devastated. We needed to be there for him. You understand?" I understood perfectly. "Right," I said. "Of course. We're so proud of you, though. You didn't need us there. You're always so independent. Evan, he needs more support right now. His agency is really struggling, and we're helping him through it." Helping him. That was one way to phrase it. "How much this time, Enum?" I asked. "Eric, don't start." "How much, Mom?" She sighed, the kind of sigh that said I was being difficult. $50,000. It's a loan. He'll pay us back when things turn around. $50,000 on top of everything else. Meanwhile, I'd put myself through this MBA with a combination of night shifts, freelance gigs, and loans I was paying off myself. But sure, Evan needed more support. You know what? I said quietly. Forget it. Congrats on being there for the son who matters. Eric, that's not fair. Evan is going through something real right now. Your success? It's wonderful, but it doesn't need us the same way. And there it was. The truth, clean and cold. My success means nothing, I repeated back to her. Is that what you're saying? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean, Mom? Another pause, longer this time. Evan's the only son who really counts right now, Eric. He needs us. You've always been fine on your own. The line went quiet except for the hum of traffic outside my window. I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not even sadness. Something colder. Something final. Then watch me erase you for good, I said. She laughed, actually laughed. Oh, Eric, don't be dramatic. I hung up. I sat on my couch that night, still wearing my graduation gown. The cap sat on the coffee table next to my diploma, which I hadn't bothered to frame yet. There was no point. Nobody was going to ask to see it. The apartment was quiet. I'd lived alone for years, but tonight the silence felt different, heavier, like the walls were holding their breath. I replayed the conversation with Mom over and over, each word cutting a little deeper with every pass. Evan's the only son who really counts right now. Not even counts. Counts right now. As if my value was situational, conditional, dependent on whether their favorite child needed them more. I thought about calling Dad, but I already knew how that would go. He'd tell me I was overreacting. He'd say Mom didn't mean it the way it sounded. He'd remind me that Evan was struggling and that family helps family. Then he'd ask me when I was coming to Sunday dinner, as if nothing had happened. So I didn't call. Instead, I pulled up my banking app and stared at the account I'd set up years ago. The one I never mentioned to anyone. The account where I quietly funneled a percentage of every consulting payment, every bonus, every unexpected windfall. It wasn't much at first, but over the years it had grown into something significant, something powerful. I'd always told myself I was saving for an emergency, a safety net, a cushion in case the business ever collapsed. But sitting there in that dark apartment, still wearing a gown that nobody came to see, I realized the emergency wasn't coming. It was already here. It had been here my whole life. I'd just been too hopeful to see it. They wanted me to be invisible? Fine, I'd be invisible. But invisible doesn't mean powerless. I opened my laptop and started pulling files. Bank records, transfer histories, joint accounts I'd been quietly removed from years ago, but still had access to because nobody ever bothered to follow up. I wasn't looking for revenge yet. I was looking for leverage, for proof, for the truth I'd always felt but never had the evidence to hold in my hands. And I found it. All of it. Every payment to Evan, every loan that was never repaid, every excuse, every priority, every choice they made that put him first and me nowhere. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even feel angry anymore. I just felt cold, clear, decided. I closed the laptop, took off the gown, and went to bed. Tomorrow the erasure would begin. The favoritism started early. I was 6 when I first noticed it. Evan was 3, still learning to talk in full sentences, and already he was the center of every room. I remember bringing home a drawing from school, a crayon masterpiece of our house with a bright yellow sun and stick figure family. I was so proud. I taped it to the fridge myself because Mom was busy helping Evan with his shoes. It stayed there for 2 days. Then Evan scribbled on a napkin, and Mom put his napkin right over my drawing. When I asked why, she said his was cute. Mine was just okay. That was the pattern. My okay was always less than his cute. My good was less than his trying. My excellent was less than his effort. At 12, I saved up my allowance for 3 months to buy a used saxophone from a yard sale. I wanted to join the school band. I practiced every day in the garage, learning scales and fighting through squeaky notes. Dad came out once, listened for 30 seconds and said, "Keep it down, Eric. Evan's trying to nap." I sold the saxophone 2 months later to help pay for Evan's birthday party, a bounce house party for his 9th birthday. At 16, I got a part-time job at a computer repair shop. I loved it. I was good at it. I started building a small savings account, dreaming about college, about getting out, about finally being somewhere I was seen. Then Evan wanted a car. Not needed, wanted. He was 13. He couldn't even drive yet, but he saw one in a magazine and decided he had to have it when he turned 16. So Dad sat me down and asked if I'd be willing to contribute to the family fund for Evan's future car. I said no at first. Then Mom cried. Actual tears. She said I was being selfish, that Evan looked up to me, that this was what brothers did. I gave them $1,200, every dollar I'd saved. Evan got his car at 16. I took the bus to community college. When I started my consulting business at 26, I worked 70-hour weeks. I lived in a studio apartment with no heat and ate ramen more nights than I care to admit. I didn't ask them for help. I knew better. But when Evan announced his marketing agency at 25, they threw him a launch party. Caterers, a rented venue, champagne. I wasn't invited. I found out from a cousin's Instagram story. That's when I realized the truth. I wasn't family. I was the budget, the backup, the dependable disappointment who existed to make their real son's life easier. I started small, quietly, the kind of moves that wouldn't register immediately but would compound over time, like interest, like debt, like every ignored birthday and missed milestone coming due all at once. First, I pulled myself off the family phone plan. I'd been covering 3 lines for years, mine and 2 lines they'd added for emergencies that somehow became Evan's work phone and Mom's backup device. $17 a month per line. Doesn't sound like much until you multiply it by 4 years. I called the carrier Monday morning, removed the lines, and switched to my own plan. Done. Next, the streaming services, Netflix, Hulu, Spotify Premium, Disney Plus, all under my account, all shared freely. I changed every password and removed every profile that wasn't mine. I didn't send a warning. I just did it. Then came the car insurance. This one stung them harder. Evan's car, the one they'd bought him with my money all those years ago, was still under a policy I'd helped set up. I was listed as a secondary driver for discounts. I called the insurance company and had myself removed entirely. The rate hike hit their account within 48 hours. I canceled the subscriptions I'd been paying for Dad's business software, the cloud storage for Mom's photos, the meal kit delivery service I'd gifted them last Christmas that somehow became a permanent expectation. Every auto pay that had my card attached, I severed. Clean cuts. No explanations. Wednesday afternoon, my phone started ringing. Mom first. I let it go to voicemail. Eric, honey, something's wrong with Netflix. Did you change the password? Call me back. Then Dad, also voicemail. Hey, kiddo, my software's saying the subscription lapsed. Can you take a look when you get a chance? Thanks. Evan texted. Yo, what happened to Spotify? Did your card expire or something? I didn't respond to any of them. I just watched the messages pile up like unpaid bills. By Friday, the tone had shifted. Mom's voicemail wasn't sweet anymore. Eric, this isn't funny. Why are you doing this? Call me back right now. Dad's text came through blunt. Need to talk. This is childish. Evan's message was pure entitlement. Dude, seriously? You're really going to cut me off over nothing? Grow up. I smiled for the first time in days. Over nothing. That's what they thought this was. A tantrum. A phase. A moment of drama that would pass once I cooled down and remembered my place. They had no idea what was coming. I opened a new document on my laptop and started a list. A long list, every expense, every transfer, every silent sacrifice I'd made while they poured everything into Evan's bottomless pit of need. This wasn't about streaming services. This was about the bill coming due. Sunday came. I knew they'd expect me for dinner. I also knew they'd corner me the second I walked through the door. So I showed up exactly on time, parked in the driveway, and waited. 3 minutes later, Dad opened the front door and waved me in. I didn't move. He walked down the driveway, hands in his pockets, trying to look casual. He wasn't. You coming in or what? He asked. No, I said. Eric, come on. Your mother made your favorite. Did she? He frowned. What's going on with you? You've been ignoring our calls all week. I've been busy. Too busy to answer your own parents? I looked at him, really looked at him, at the man who taught me how to ride a bike, then forgot to show up when I won my first race. The man who said he was proud of me, then missed every single moment that mattered. Yeah, I said, too busy. Mom appeared in the doorway behind him, arms crossed. Eric, get in here. We need to talk. No thanks. She walked down the driveway too, her expression tight. Excuse me? I said no thanks. I'm not coming in. What is your problem? She snapped. My problem, I said slowly, is that you skipped my graduation to give Evan another $50,000. My problem is that you told me my success means nothing because Evan's the only son who counts. My problem is that I spent 32 years being invisible and I'm done, pretending it doesn't hurt. Dad shifted uncomfortably. Eric, you're taking this the wrong way. Am I? Yes, your mother didn't mean it like that. You know Evan's struggling. We're just trying to help him get back on his feet. For 3 years, I said. You've been helping him for 3 years. How much has he paid back? Silence. That's what I thought. Mom's face flushed. You don't understand what it's like to watch your child fail. You're right, I said. I don't, because you never watch me do anything. That's not fair. Then don't ask me when the lights go off, I said. Dad blinked. What? You'll figure it out. I got back in my car, started the engine, and pulled out of the driveway. In my rearview mirror, I saw them standing there confused and angry. Good. Let them wonder. Let them worry. Let them feel, just for a moment, what it's like to be forgotten. I wasn't their backup plan anymore. I was the architect of their collapse. The thing about being invisible is that people stop watching you. They stop checking. They assume you'll always be there, quietly holding things together, never asking questions. What they don't realize is that invisibility gives you access to everything. I spent the next week building my case, not for a courtroom, for something better, for the moment when they'd realize exactly who they'd been taking for granted. I started with the joint accounts. Years ago, when I'd first started my business, Dad had suggested we open a shared account for family emergencies. I'd agreed, thinking it was smart, a safety net. What I didn't realize was that I'd become the safety net. I pulled every transaction from the past 5 years, transfers to Evan's business account, payments for his office rent, his car payments, his trips, his everything, all labeled as loans that were never repaid. Total? $243,000, $250,000 funneled into a failing business while I worked 70-hour weeks and ate leftovers. Next, I dug into my own records. Every birthday they missed, every graduation, every awards ceremony. I didn't need proof of absence, but I documented it anyway. Photos from events where I stood alone, programs where my name appeared and their seats stayed empty, emails I'd sent asking if they'd come, met with excuses or silence. Then came the real kicker. Evan's agency. I'd been curious for years about how bad things really were, so I did what any consultant would do. I researched public records, business filings, client reviews, tax liens. The agency was dying. Worse than dying, it was on life support, and my parents were the only thing keeping the ventilator plugged in. But here's the part they didn't know, the part that made me smile when I found it. I'd been Evan's silent partner all along, not by choice, by default. 3 years ago, when Evan first started the agency, he'd needed a co-signer for his business loan. Dad was retired. Mom didn't have credit, so they'd asked me. And like an idiot, I'd said yes, because that's what family does, right? Except I'd never signed anything officially making me a partner, just a guarantor, which meant when the loan went into default 6 months ago, the bank started looking at me. Not Evan, me. My credit took the hit. My name ended up on the notices. My liability sat there like a bomb waiting to go off. And Evan? Evan had no idea. Neither did Mom and Dad. I pulled the loan documents, the default notices, the payment history, $57,000 in missed payments. All tied to my name, all dragging me down while they threw more money at a sinking ship. I made copies of everything, organized it into a folder, read naturally. Then I scheduled a meeting with my attorney, not for a lawsuit, not yet, just for options, for leverage, for the conversation I knew was coming, because they'd pushed me out, told me I didn't matter, erased me from every moment that should have been mine. Now I was going to erase them right back, and unlike their empty promises to Evan, my erasure would be permanent. I showed up to Sunday dinner 2 weeks later, unannounced. They weren't expecting me. Evan's car sat in the driveway next to Dad's truck. Perfect. I walked in without knocking. They were already at the table. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, the works. Evan looked up first, surprised. "Eric, I thought you were done with us." "Not quite," I said. I set the red folder on the table, right between the gravy boat and Mom's wine glass. Dad frowned. "What's this?" "Open it," I said. He did. Mom leaned over, reading with him. I watched their faces change. Confusion, realization, panic. Evan grabbed a page. "What is this?" "That," I said calmly, "is a complete accounting of every dollar you've taken from this family in the last 5 years. $243,000 from Mom and Dad, $57,000 in defaulted loan payments tied to my name, and a breakdown of your agency's financials, which, by the way, are a disaster." "You had no right to dig into my business," Evan snapped. "I had every right," I said, "because I'm your co-signer, remember? You made me liable. And when you stopped paying, the bank came after me. Not you, me." Mom's face went pale. "Eric, we didn't know." "Didn't you?" Silence. I pulled out another document. "This is a formal demand letter from my attorney. I'm removing myself as guarantor on Evan's loan. Immediately. The bank will require full repayment within 30 days, or they'll begin collections. Against Evan." "You can't do that," Evan said. "I already did. It was filed yesterday. You'll get your copy in the mail tomorrow." Dad stood up. "Eric, this is extreme." "Is it? Because skipping my MBA graduation to throw another $50,000 at his failing business wasn't extreme? Telling me my success means nothing wasn't extreme? Spending 32 years treating me like a bank account instead of a son wasn't extreme?" Mom reached for my hand. I pulled back. "We're sorry," she said quietly. "No, you're not. You're scared. There's a difference." I pulled out the last page. "This is a cease and desist. You are no longer allowed to use my name, my credit, or my resources for anything related to Evan's business. If you do, I'll pursue legal action. For fraud." "Fraud?" Dad's voice cracked. "You used my information without my consent. You damaged my credit. You made me liable for debt I didn't agree to. That's fraud, Dad. And I have every receipt to prove it." Evan shot up from his chair. "You're really going to destroy me over this?" I looked at him, my little brother, the golden child, the one who got everything while I got nothing. "I'm not destroying you," I said. "I'm just stopping the life support. What happens next is on you." I turned to leave. Mom called after me. "Eric, please. We're family." I stopped at the door, didn't turn around. "No," I said. "Family shows up. Family cares. Family sees you. You made it clear I was never really part of yours. So now I'm making it official. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't show up at my door. We're done." I walked out, got in my car, drove away. Behind me, the life I'd spent 32 years trying to earn finally collapsed, and I felt nothing but relief. The fallout came fast. Evan's loan went into default within 3 weeks. The bank moved to collections. His agency shut down a month later. He had to sell the car, the one I'd helped buy all those years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. Mom called 47 times in the first 2 months. I didn't answer once. Dad sent emails, long ones, explaining, justifying, apologizing in ways that still managed to center Evan's pain instead of acknowledging mine. I deleted them all. They tried showing up at my apartment once. I'd moved by then. Didn't tell them where. Didn't leave a forwarding address. Just packed my life into boxes and started over in a neighborhood where nobody knew my name or my history. My business grew. Turns out when you're not spending emotional energy trying to be seen by people who refuse to look, you have a lot more room for success. I landed 3 major contracts in 6 months, hired my first employee, started mentoring young consultants who reminded me of the kid I used to be. Hungry, invisible, determined. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt quiet. Like the noise I'd been living in for 32 years had finally stopped, and I could hear myself think. One evening I sat on my new balcony, watching the sunset, and my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Eric, it's Evan. I know you probably won't read this, but I need you to know I get it now. What we did, what they did. I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know." I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond, to say something cutting, something final. But I didn't. I just deleted the text and put my phone down. Forgiveness wasn't something I owed anyone. Not him, not them, not even myself. What I owed myself was peace, and peace doesn't come from revenge. It doesn't come from apologies. It comes from walking away and building something better. I thought about the kid who taped a crayon drawing to the fridge and watched it get covered up. The teenager who gave away his savings for a brother who never said thank you. The adult who walked across a stage alone. I thought about all the ways I tried to earn love from people who saw me as a resource instead of a son. And I realized something. I didn't need them to see me anymore. I'd finally learned to see myself. I took a sip of my coffee, watched the sun dip below the horizon, and smiled. For the first time in my life, I was free, and that was worth more than anything they could ever give me.